I'm Sherilyn Castleman, and I am Chief Learning Officer for Sisters in Sales and Head of Education and Growth and Executive Coach for CGI. For me, a pivotal moment was when my daughter came home from college. She's 18, and she came home for spring break only to find out that she couldn't go back because of social distancing. And she was lamenting about missing her first year. And being the salesperson that I am, I immediately started. Okay, super. Thank you, Jubilee. I immediately started telling her or selling her on the idea of taking an online course or joining a virtual musical theater production. And she shot me down with her objections. And although I am a super saleswoman, I have mastered objections. I couldn't overcome her objections. She was saying things like, I have to have a stage to dance on and to sing on and to perform on. And I paused for a moment and I thought about what it was like when I was a freshman. And I could understand her fears, I could understand her sadness and her frustration. And at the time, I was writing a webinar for empathetic selling. And so I instead of selling her, I started asking her what questions. And I asked her open-ended what questions. And we ended up collaborating on a solution. And she did end up taking a virtual course in New York at the observatory, the Conservatory of Performing Arts. And so what I thought, and that's what I wanted to talk about today, is what if rather than selling, we solutioned during these times? What if, Diane and Jubilee, what happens if, as we reimagine, as we return, as we reinvent, what happens if we focused on solutioning and customer relationships? And also, the other question I have is what if historically, most of the selling that I've done, we've spent 20% of our time focused on the customer and 80% of our time selling? What happens if we flip that? What happens if we now spend 80% of our time focused on our customer and only 20% of our time solutioning? So that's what I'd like to focus on today, is how do we get there? And so I was thinking that although when Sonia asked me to do this, she asked me to title this Sell, Sell, Sell. And I thought, that's not right. So I went for Unlock Your Sales Superpower. But I think that's still not right. What I think is right is unlocking your relationship and solutioning superpower. So the framework we're going to talk about is how to attract clients, how to connect with clients, and how to delight your clients. So my first question for you is, if you had to tell me about your business in 1 to 3 words, what is your value story? What is your value proposition? So Diane and Jubilee, if you could drop that in the chat box for me real quickly, that would be great. What is your 1 word value story? What's the value that you deliver to your clients? Okay, so one of the things that you might want to do is reposition that, because people don't want to buy a 1/4 inch drill. They want a 1/4 inch hole. And so a lot of times we focus on that I'm an accountant, that I'm a massage therapist. But really, as a massage therapist, what you're delivering to your clients is relaxation, minimizing pain. So my value proposition is about growth. I help clients um, because entrepreneurs and business owners turn to us when they want to grow, when they want to grow their business. So Jubilee is to encourage and empower. Great. Jubilee, what is your business? What do you do? Um, they turn to us when they want to grow. They want to grow their business, their revenue, relationships, skills. Professionals work with us because we have tremendous success. We take simple frameworks to accelerate performance and growth. My next question is, Is the best salesperson a business owner? Because other people won't have a passion for it. Just drop in the chat yes or no. And actually, the correct answer to this is yes and no. If you are a solopreneur, absolutely, you are the best person to sell. If you are a small business owner, everybody in your company should be selling. And one quick trick I have for you is check out the LinkedIn profile of everybody that works for you. Every single LinkedIn profile should be promoting your business, not promoting themselves so that they're looking for a job. Now, if one of your employees is looking for a job and they've been transparent about that, that's different. But if you have dedicated employees, you want their LinkedIn profile talking about why they're selling your product. Here's the next question. If companies don't have a direct application to help stop or fight COVID-19, um, will you have a hard time selling in today's climate? And the answer again is yes and no. Because if you can pivot and meet your customers' needs, sales are going up. I had many of my clients that contacted me and said, Sherilyn, we're going to cancel, we're going to pause our relationship because of this pandemic. And I had them pivot. Let's just look at how can you meet your clients' needs. And so this is one of the things we're going to talk about here in a little bit is how do we go about doing that? So again, we're going to talk about falling in love with sales and marketing, an approach to sales, and some tips for selling during the economy as we recover from the pandemic. So again, we're going to talk about attracting, connecting, and delighting. So let's start with attracting. So one of the things that I did when I first started my coaching and my training practice is I connected with Sisters in Sales. I was at a Twitter networking event, and I ran into Chantel George, and she is the CEO of Sisters in Sales. And I was talking to her about her vision, and I had been on her website. It was kind of coincidental earlier that day, and she was just starting. So she had this massive vision. She had passion, but she had no strategy. And so we did an energy exchange. She signed me up to make a presentation at LinkedIn, and I spent a day helping her draw circles and strategize where her organization could go. We identified ideal customers, what the who, what, and where were, why people should buy. I talked about why people should buy, and as a result, I have been able to build my business. So I just want to talk a little bit about that as one of your abilities to attract. So the most important thing is figuring out who your ideal customer is. So for me, my ideal customer are women of color, entrepreneurs, sidepreneurs, which is somebody who has a job and a side hustle. Solopreneurs are somebody who is just them by themselves. And so, how old are your customers? Where do they live? What do they like to do? And how can you connect with them? The next question that you have to answer is your who, what, and where. Who are you? What is it that you do? And why is that you do it? If you don't have that answer, there's also a handout on the website that talks about how to send out emails to some of your friends and colleagues and get feedback back so that you can develop your who, what, and your why statement. And the final one is your value story. And the value story should answer, why should I buy? Why should I buy now? And why should I buy from you? So let's look at a couple of these. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, you will see my who, what, and why statement. My what is, again, I'm a coaching and training company, and I'm specialized in a strength-based growth mindset. Why do I do this? Because I want my clients to be too good to ignore. I want them to succeed and be confident and have the skills to develop both professionally and personally. And who am I? Right here it says I am a professional salesperson. I've got over 20 years in sales leadership, so I know the sales process. I'm an experienced entrepreneur. I've been a sidepreneur and entrepreneur my entire life. And so I know about dedication, passion, and grit and what it takes to succeed. And finally, I'm also a wife and a mother, and I know what it's like trying to balance and have it all. And so this is what I share on my LinkedIn page and on my web page about my what, why, and who. The next thing that you want is your value story. Now, if you haven't written a value story, this template is also in the slides, and there's a handout with samples of your value story. Your very first thing is your hook. Your hook is why are you, and what is your title? The next thing is, what is the biggest result that you pain that you solve? I make sure that people grow their business so that they can have generational wealth, and that is what I'm focused on, is building the life that's important to you. What is And then finally, what differentiates me? What differentiates me is I add coaching and training and breaking down complex ideas into simple frameworks with everything that I do. And so if you go back here and look at my value story, it says it right here. Entrepreneurs turn to us when they want to grow, they want to build generational wealth. And I do this by breaking down simple frameworks and accelerating performance and growth. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how you attract. Yes, it is. Balance is important. And being a wife and mother and having a career as well as a business. People always say, "Can you do it all?" And I always joke and say, "You can't do it all well, but if you certain ones that you can focus on." My daughters are grown now, so I can focus on my career, and I'm putting my energy into my business. When my daughters were younger, I didn't put as much focus into my business, but I was a top seller and a top leader in my company. So I think that you have to have balance. And one of the things that I stress, that as women, self-care has to be at the top of that list. And so I meditate, I do yoga. I used to be a runner. I now cycle and kayak, but it is so important that you have balance. So I just wanted to share with you a couple strategies that I have used. So when I first started building my business and I wanted to attract customers, I went to a LinkedIn workshop, and I still remember they gave us a quiz when we went in. And after over 30 years as a professional sales leader, my score on the LinkedIn quiz came out that I was invisible. I was devastated. But I took a step back and I said, "You can do this." And so I read up on LinkedIn. There are some tips that I use now on LinkedIn, some of my sample messages there. Every day when I first started building out my LinkedIn connections, I would send 10 invitations. And the message that I use is in the handout. And I would just say, "I'd love to connect with you as another woman of color in sales, or another woman in the DMV. I'm located in Washington, D.C. here." And and then when they responded, I would say, "Great, I'd love to spend a few minutes, 15 minutes with you and hear your story." And I found out that people loved sharing their story. So this is how I started my networking and my connecting. And it has built out to the point that now I have close to 900 connections, which when I started this 2 years ago, I think I had less than 40. I didn't use Twitter at all. And now when I do post a tweet, which is about once a week, I can, through my influencers, get somewhere between 20 and 30,000 impressions. I still only have 4 people on Instagram. I'm not sure if I'll ever get that. And I don't use Facebook. So the two that I have chose to use are LinkedIn, as well as Twitter. So I've talked about outreach, which I did with Sisters in Sales. I started writing blogs. And what I did was I wrote a blog every week for a year. And I think I was the only one that read my blogs. But what it did was it has given me material so that I have them. I now sponsor my blog. So you'll see here in the bottom right corner here, I don't know if you can see this logo. This blog was sponsored by Salesforce and Sisters in Sales. I now write profile blogs where I highlight trailblazers, women of color in sales for different companies, and they pay for this. And then I post it out on my website. They put it out and distribute it. This blog, I think, had over 60,000 impressions, thousands of views, excuse me, and it drives people to my website. I also started speaking. I initially started speaking with Sisters in Sales. I then have now expanded that, and I have speaking agreements with T-Mobile, with LinkedIn. I've spoken with Pinterest. I've spoken to JustWorks. And so on my website, I have the list of the companies that I've spoken to. I've done podcasts. So the more you speak, the more people are going to invite you to speak. And finally, networking. I don't know how many of you, but I know recently, Sisters in Sales, we did a virtual webinar like this, and we had 1,400 women show up on our virtual seminar symposium. And majority of them reached out to me before the event. Hundreds of them reached out to me on LinkedIn to network and connect. And afterwards, several of them also did the same thing. So I'm not sure how many of you reached out and connected with the speakers from here. I connected with all of the business speakers 2 to 3 weeks ago, just before this, and just said, hi, let's connect. We're going to be on the platform together. Okay, so that's what I have about attracting. One thing I do want to go back to is that one of the things that I learned years ago was, I don't think if I have it, is that if you criticize somebody, you raise their defenses. If you challenge somebody, you raise their game. So I'm going to be challenging you throughout the talks today. And if I say something that doesn't resonate with you, if I say something that you don't understand, just throw it in the chat box. Challenge me. Raise my game too. And that's how we all get better. So what we're going to talk about next is empathetic listening and asking powerful questions. So there's 3 levels of listening. There's level 1 where you listen to speak, level 2 you listen to hear, and level 3 you listen to understand, or like I say, you listen between the words. So level 1 listening, we all do it. You go to a restaurant and she says, I have broccoli cheddar soup for lunch today. And you go, do I want broccoli? I don't know if I'm in the mood for soup. You're listening what she says because you're thinking about yourself and how you want to respond. Level 2 listening is what most salespeople and most people are taught to do. This is that reflective listening. You smile, you nod your head. When they finish speaking, you reflect back on what they say. You're looking at them, you're paying attention. But if you really want to connect with people, if you really want to succeed with your clients during a pandemic, you have to do what's called global listening or level 3 listening. And you have to listen for the emotions, the tone. You have to listen to what's going on between the words and what they're not saying. And I know we're on the phone, we're on Zoom, and it's really hard. It's a lot harder to pick that up. But with some practice, you can get it right. And so things that you want to listen for are values. You want to listen for emotions. How are people feeling? Are they stressed? Are they worried about the organization cutting their department? Are they worried about their team? Are they worried about their family health? What is their energy? Are they high energy? Is their tone down? What are some themes that are going on? And one trick that I use is I use something called box breathing. And what box breathing is, it's a yoga breathing practice where you breathe in 2, 3, 4, you hold it 2, 3, 4, you breathe out 2, 3, 4, you hold it 2, 3, 4, and you breathe in 2, 3, 4. Now, what box breathing does is it lowers your heart rate, it calms your mind, and it helps you listen. And so before I start important calls with clients, before I sit down to listen to somebody, before I coach, I always do a couple rounds of box breathing so it quiets my chatter inside and I'm able to listen to them. The other thing that you can do is ask permission. It is okay to say, it looks like things are really tough right now. Would it be okay if I called you again in a week? Would it be okay if we continue talking about this? You seem really distracted. So getting permission for me has always been another way of showing empathy. So let's talk a little bit about how do you know what your clients are looking for? And what I call this is last, first, best, worst. And one of the things that I encourage people to do is talk to your customers or talk to your customers' customers. So one of my clients sold dental software. It's an engagement software for patients. And so I had her just talk to anybody who's been to the dentist. And this is what she asked them. When was the last time you went to the dentist during the pandemic? What was your experience like? Ask somebody to tell you exactly what their experience like. And you listen for what was their last experience like? What was it like the first time you went to the dentist during the pandemic? What was your worst experience going to the dentist or to the doctor during the pandemic? And then the final and most important question is, what would be the best experience? I have a loan officer as a client, but this is what she asked. These are her list of questions. These questions are also attached in the handout, and it's important to understand what your customers' experience are is, or your your clients customers experiences. And if you spend time using empathetic listening, doing customer discovery, and asking powerful questions, you will learn what the real need is. The next thing that I encourage you to do is that you take the information that you've discovered and put it into a matrix. Now, this matrix is, you list out what you learned, the last, first, best, and worst, and then you list your values here. So what differentiate you? What are your big bets? Do you increase efficiency? Do you reduce costs? I know that as a motivational speaker, Jubilee, you're all about the customer's experience. Maybe there's some new trends that you're talking about. So you want to be able to connect these so that you can help when you get ready for a client to solution. If you ask a question, if you ask your clients or your prospects a last, first, worst, best question, by the time they start talking about the best question, they are solutioning. You can join them in that discussion of solutioning. And the very next question that usually is, it's either how much will this cost or how long will this take? It's not selling. It is building a relationship. It is connecting with them. That is all that you're doing. I'm going to pause for a second and see if there's any questions before we move on. Okay, so let's talk about delight. So now you have attracted customers with your strategy. You know how to ask better questions and listen empathetically, and you've connected with your customers. Well, how do you delight them during a pandemic? So one acronym that I like to use is called the HEART framework. And so again, we're spending 80% of our time focused on our customers. So what better place to start than with our heart? And Diane, you're absolutely, thank you. These questions work, and they work over and over and over again. I've got all of my clients using them. I have taught workshops to hundreds of people, and they are using these questions. And this works right now. People need to talk about what's going on. Another tip that I have is that if you have current customers that you haven't connected with a while, call them up and ask them these last, first, best, worst questions, just to connect with where they are in the pandemic. What was your last week like during the pandemic? What was your first day back to work like? You know, if you are selling motivation and encouragement and empowerment, how do you know? Ask these questions of people and ask them, what's the worst experience you have? How is your team? How bad is it? Well, what would a best solution be if somebody was going to come in and motivate your team? If somebody was going to come in and inspire your team? This is what's important. Okay, so let's talk about the heart framework. The first one is, as you think about your clients, you want to humanize your company as possible during this pandemic. Now, the link here, this comes from a recent Harvard Business Review article, and they talk about just communicating with your customers about what you're doing. You know, we've added customer service. We've got extended hours. You know, we're doing everything we can not to lay people off. Educate them about any changes. I know that with Sisters in Sales, I added a Friday Zoom call every day between 12:30 and 1 for our Slack channel, which is we have over 2,500 women of color sales professionals in our network. And I'm there for 30 minutes every Friday to answer any questions, share some tips, talk to people, whether you're struggling at work, whether you have a deal, you need to pivot, anything. And so this is a service that we offer to our member. And so we've educated them about it. I also posted out on LinkedIn. I posted on our Slack channel. Let them know that you're stable. Let you know that you are reinventing. You are recovering from this. You are available. Um, the other one is um, revolutionize your offerings. Think about how you might change what you sell. How you might take your motivational and your empowerment speak presentations and talk about the pandemic. That's what I started talking about, is selling during the pandemic, connecting with customers and building relationships during a pandemic. How do you get your team to focus on clients? So many salespeople, we are only comfortable with selling. We're comfortable with our product. I remember that I was selling into Anthem a few years ago as one of my clients, and we had a $32 million contract. And I still remember, it was the very first day I was on the phone with the VP at Anthem, and he yelled and he was screaming and he was insulting the company. And this was my very first introduction to him. It was actually my very first day on the job. And all I kept saying to him is there more? And he just kept going and he kept going. And I let him finish, because I think when clients need to vent, they have to get it off their chest before they can listen. When he finished, I asked him two powerful questions. And I always ask clients this: what do we do well? Which kind of set him back a little bit. But then he did tell me there were a couple of things that I had some really smart people on my team, and they gave him really good advice. And actually, our solution worked. Um, and then what could we do better? And he talked to me about what we could do better. And there were three things that we could do better. And then I asked him these four questions. So what was it like the last time you had an interaction with my company? And he was horrified. It was, the team had stopped answering the phones. They hated that he yelled so much. What was the first time you had an interaction with our company? And what was the worst? And our reports were the worst. And what was the bane of his existence? And those were our reports. But I also asked him what was the best and what was the solution. He told me what the solution was, and I promised him, and he wanted to cancel this $32 million contract. I promised him that if he would give me 30 days to put that best solution in possible, um, and if I didn't, at the end of 30 days, I would help him get out of this $32 million contract. Now, I knew that getting out of the $32 million contract would be the end of my job, but I also knew that if they pulled out and they pulled $32 million out of the company, that would be the end of my job. So I had nothing to lose. I was brand new on the position. So I rallied the team. Bottom line, not only did I meet with him, I went out and met with Jimmy Lee, who was actually the president of North America at Anthem at that time. And I did the same thing. I talked to him and understood what was the bane of his existence. The bottom line is Anthem added 20% more revenue in 60 days. My first 60 days on the job, I increased spend $6 million. So I tell you that story because it's important that not only do we connect with our clients, we listen to our clients, and we have the courage to ask these questions and really listen. Um, and they will tell us. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how COVID-19 is changing the sales process. So one of the things is what's in the cards for 2021. And this is my blog that I just posted. It's on my website. It's on the Sisters in Sales website. It's also out on LinkedIn. So it's not in the handout, but you can find it on my website. And this is a kind of a summary that's from another Harvard Business Review article that said women are outperforming men in sales during a pandemic because we have the skills and the knowledge and experience to build these client relationships. And that women sales leaders are also outperforming male sales leaders. And that's because women sales leaders hire 50% women and 50% guys, whereas male sales leaders hire 75% guys and 25% women. So what's in the cards for 2021? C stands for collaboration. You have to build relations. You have to collaborate with your customers. So when I'm talking about solutioning, it is getting them to the point that they're talking about what's best. Let them start building that solution for you. And then you just jump in with questions and ideas. And what if we did this? And just asking questions. So it is collaborating. The next one is analyzing. and I was talking to Angelique. Oh, it's horrible. And she's a new head of sales. She's the new SVP of sales at SAP. And she was talking about the one thing that helped her advance her careers was critical thinking. And so analyzing is critical thinking. And women are great at that. And if that's not a skill you have, develop it. Learn to ask good questions. Learn to think about the information that you're getting. So two analyzing skills are important for us as we're looking into 2021. One is critical thinking, and the other one is to be able to do a root cause analysis. Look at what the problem is and go to the root cause. It's kind of like, if somebody goes in with a sore on their arm and they actually have cancer, and you just put a little cream on the sore. Well, you didn't go to the root cause. The root cause is a cancer, it's not the sore. The next one is relationships. You have to be able to negotiate. You have to be able to connect with people. You have to be able to leverage your relationships. So building relationships is critical. Women do a great job on it. Yes, we are, Diane. We are queens at this. And Black women excel at what's going on for 2021. And this is our year. We are in sales. We as business owners and in sales, this is our year because we do this. We know how to build relationships. The D is something that I focus on, and that is development. That is growth. That is being open and having an open mind to new things. And I know that I've talked to some salespeople about asking these questions, and it's invariably somebody will say, "No, Sherilyn, you ask these questions, you're opening a can of worms with clients." And I said, "No, try it. Have an open mind. Try it." And the final S for what's in the cards for 2021 is being strategic. We have to be strategic. We have to think, how do I get there? What are the steps I'm going to take? How do I break this down? I have my clients do this every single time I work with them. What is it that you're going to do? What are you going to do next? What are the three major steps you need to do to get there? When you're thinking about your clients, when you're thinking about solutioning, when you're thinking about building out and selling and attracting clients, be strategic. A couple other things that you want to think about is remember that as we return, reimagine, and reinvent, everything is digital, everything is virtual. I remember my very first webinar in March. I was supposed to do a live event. We ended up doing it as a webinar, and I was just scared to death to do the video, and I did just slides. The next one, I did slides in the video, and it was horrible. I cringe every time I watch the video. And each one has gotten better. And now I'm being asked to do some keynote speaking, and I have a book that's going to be coming out. And so I have gotten comfortable by being virtual and doing digital sales. The other one is consider a subscription model. You're used to talking to people. Think about adding customer success to that. How do you add a service fee to that so that you can service people for your business? So with that, I want to conclude just by saying thank you for listening. A couple things that I'd like to offer you is one, please point your cell phone camera at this QR code. It will take you to this page. And here are all of your handouts. Thank you. I'm glad that this works for you. All of the handouts that I've talked about are listed here, as well as these slides are here. So I was hoping you didn't have to write as I was rattling off, because I know that I talk very quickly. Also, every single person that I present to, I offer you a free 1 hour consultation. So you can sign up here to spend 1 hour with me. We can work on your value proposition. We can work on your branding, your personal branding. We can work on your attract strategy, whether you want to write blogs or start speaking, or where do you want to make your connections, or maybe you want to master LinkedIn. So whatever it is you want, come to the table with what you want, and let's spend an hour growing your business and moving you forward. And again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for your feedback and your positive comments. I appreciate it. And I just want to close with, are there any questions or anything else that anybody wants to challenge me with before we wrap? So I'm going to challenge you. And what I'm going to challenge you is that you're going to be watching, hopefully, you're joining lots of sessions today. And one of the things that I like to challenge people with is when somebody is sharing lots of knowledge, think of one thing that you're going to implement immediately, either later today or tomorrow. So I'm going to ask you to drop in the chat what's one thing that you're going to make happen in the next 24 hours. Are you going to go on LinkedIn and update your profile? Are you going to write out your value story? Are you going to work on your target market? Are you going to go out and practice the last, first, best, worst questioning? So what are you going to do as we close out our session today, so that you can um, that you can succeed in with your career? So Jubilee asked me, are there more people in my family in sales? And I will have to tell you, my father is. And so just to share with you, I started working with my father. He had a general contracting business when I was in grade school. And I still remember that, and I learned about how to treat customers and how to sell from my father. And I still remember that Dolores and Dan asked my dad to convert his attic to um, a master bedroom suite. And so he had walked through with their vision. And I remember we had just finished, and I had grouted the tile, and Dolores was just in love with her built-in closet. She could see all her shoes, and my dad had installed a two-headed shower for in the bathroom, and this huge jacuzzi tub. And so Dolores and I went downstairs, and we were standing in the kitchen, and my dad was showing Dan how everything worked. He's running water in the tub, and we're standing in the kitchen, and I can hear the ceiling cracking. And I look up, and sure enough, the kitchen ceiling is cracking from the weight of the water in the tub. And that's where I learned my good enough work ethic from. That no matter how much people love it, good enough it just isn't. And so yes, we ate beans for the next 2 weeks because every dime that my dad made went into reinforcing that ceiling and rebuilding that bathroom. And as a result, this couple showed it to everybody, and um, and and his business just exploded, and he did more bedrooms and bathrooms and basements than we could keep up with. So thank you again. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I look forward to meeting you personally on either a Zoom call or a consulting call. And if you have any questions, you can reach me on my website, which is masterfulselling.com or sherylincastleman.com. I've enjoyed chatting with you. Thank you.